Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural Own It Summit. I'm Alana Snyder.
And I'm Ava Arroyo. We're the co-founders and co-presidents of Georgetown University Women in Leadership.
There are a lot of people here.
There are.
There are a lot of people here. It's a lot, given that we've gone from a coffee shop inspiration to an official institution. We're here. We're on this stage. That means we did something right, and we want to bring it to all of you.
We started this for a number of reasons. For me, I wanted to meet other people who are passionate about what I'm passionate about, and clearly, I found them. Look around. You've found them too.
For me, it was finding a place where I could talk about issues and their solutions too. This has become bigger than me, bigger than us, and now it's on you.
We're here today, essentially 1 year after the founding of our organization, with our biggest program yet. GU Women in Leadership is not just about the professional stuff, it's about inspiring one another. To be a CEO, to be a lawmaker, to be whatever it is you might want to be. We want to lead you there.
Our membership base has grown from the single digits to the triple digits at a whopping 350 undergraduates in just 1 year. A year. We participate in casual conversations, skill-building workshops, and speaker events on a regular basis. We want to equip our members with the tools they need to enter a workforce and represent the women of our generation and do it seriously. We mean business.
This summit is the culmination of our group as a whole. Honestly, it's an 8-hour example of the work we do all year. Dreaming, empowering, and inspiring one another. Now, we'd like to invite up to the stage our summit co-chairs, who have lived and breathed this summit, who have sacrificed sleep for endless emails, and who have been owning it since the beginning.
Please join us in welcoming Helen Brosnan and Kendall Seesmeyer to the stage.
Ready, dude? Gotta pound it. All right, everyone, welcome to the inaugural Own It Summit. This is my incredible co-chair, Kendall Seesmeyer, and if you haven't heard, she actually just won Glamour Magazine's Top 10 College Women of the Year. She's kind of what you call an underachiever. And my name is Helen Brosnan, and we are here to introduce you to the Own It Summit. It's an incredible initiative happening here, and we're going to make it happen every year. So this day is going to be awesome. I mean, come on, think about it. We're here. You're mostly college students, not the most well-known group for waking up early, let alone on a Saturday morning, so thank you. And we're here to talk about what Hillary Clinton, calls the unfinished business of the 21st century.
We are still in shock by how this day has come together. I mean, look around. We have an entire auditorium full of powerhouse women and men, both speakers and attendees. Some of you guys have traveled from across the country. I kid you not. Some of you have no connection to Georgetown at all, but you all have one thing in common. Either you really do care about advancing women's leadership, or you're just one of the many friends I paid off to come here.
The amazing young women that put this summit together, which this group I'm extremely proud of, they are incredible, is a group that they didn't just stumble upon this issue because it's suddenly trending and it's suddenly fun or interesting to talk about. We grew up with it. For me, actually, this goes way back, from driving to college with a trunk full of Hillary Clinton posters to dressing up as Madeleine Albright for 3 years in a row for Halloween. So obviously, admiring female leaders has been a long-standing hobby of mine. But Kendall and I created the summit with much more in mind than just admiration. We created it when we realized there is an actual need to connect with these female leaders that exist right now and learn from their experiences, learn from what they're going through and how they got there. Because the world literally needs us, our generation, all of you sitting right here, to be the next Halloween costume-inspiring figures. So get ready, please.
Start your iconic pins and your pantsuits.
Yes.
Find your thing. And once you all inevitably become these leaders, we want you guys to have a community. We want you to know that you'll have a community of supportive women waiting for you. Enough with the boys' club. In fact, let's be honest, exclusive clubs are so middle school, and nobody wants to go back to middle school. I want us all to learn the secrets to success because there's enough success to go around. I want everyone to leave here more inspired, more clear on their vision, more confident in themselves, and more ready to spring into action than before walking in this room.
So I went to a really, really quirky all-girls high school where I was actually taught that a raised hand and a loud voice are our most powerful tools. So I'm going to suggest to you right now that you raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise them right now, because we are declaring that April 12th, 2014, almost exactly 9 a.m., is the official start time to begin pursuing those seats in Congress that are begging for women, those boardrooms that are missing XX chromosomes, and those labs without any female minds. It's much larger than just us and this summit, but it does start right here. It starts at Georgetown right now.
Yay! Helen and I are extremely grateful that we go to Georgetown, a school that really cares about the issues that we're trying to address. It's definitely not every day that you see such a large institution investing fully in its women leaders, and we feel especially honored to have had the support of the entire community throughout the process. Thank you, Georgetown.
And thank you to one of our other literally largest sponsors of the day, Bloomberg, for making this event even happen. I remember first telling my boss, Meredith Webster, sitting right there, I would like a raise. Subtlety. Early in the fall, I told her about this when everyone else it was kind of a small idea, and everyone else was saying, that's crazy, it's not going to work, no one really likes that or thinks that's interesting. She actually thought it was awesome. I've been incredibly lucky to work for someone who actually has mentored me in many personal ways and professional ways, and really is the epitome of female leadership. With that said, I would like to invite Meredith Webster, Head of Communications and Public Affairs at Bloomberg in DC, to the stage.
Open mic, hot mic.
Oh my God.
Hot mic, so I won't. I was going to say, raise, consider it done. Good morning. I'm on behalf of Bloomberg. We are just so thrilled to be here today, and it's just a privilege this morning to be a partner at an event like this with so many distinguished leaders. I can't really even list them all. For those of you who aren't familiar with what we do, I'm going to do a little plug. We were founded 3 decades ago by Mike Bloomberg, and we are a financial data service and media company that we sit at this intersection of global business and finance. And we provide critical information to financial and business professionals each day that moves billions of dollars. We have over 15,000 employees and in 192 locations. And Helen was actually in our office both in New York and in DC. But a key driver of our success is our diverse workforce, our open culture, and our allegiance to gender equality. Simply stated, women matter in the workforce. We enhance performance, we raise creative standards, and we boost productivity. Before I joined Bloomberg in 2011, I had the privilege of working for a few amazing women trailblazers. This list includes the first female Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, a professor here. I didn't know about the Halloween costume, but I cannot wait to tell her. Yeah, no. Carol Browner, the former and longest-serving EPA administrator, and Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor. I learned more than I can say from those women here at this podium. Hard work, over-prepare, sit at the table, speak up. But the one trait that all 3 women embodied and taught me was to help other women. They all did, and they do it now, subtly, me, others, mentorships, partnerships, career advice, giving back, speaking out. Secretary Albright has a quote that she said frequently, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." I agree. And today's summit is about that, not the special place in hell, but the highlighting real women leaders who actually are doing things in a variety of ways to help women and inspire this group and all of you here today. So, and the idea that all of you would come here on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning is just another example. I want to give a shout out and thank Helen. I was lucky to work with her, and she was working for us, and I just love her can-do attitude, her ambition, her appetite for taking risks. She had this idea to bring together this group, and I was like, yeah, do it. It sounds, totally do it. Strong, inspiring, successful, smart women. Saturday, but no, yeah, do it. And then she sent me the list of who she had secured, and I was like, wait, so you're inviting these guys, or they're coming? And she's like, no, yeah, they're coming. And it was like, yeah, this isn't a small event. This is a big event, and we would love to partner with you. So, no one asked them to do this. This was an idea they had, and it's inspiring, and all of you should take a little lesson out of it. And it reminds me of this other quote that I love. The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. And that's Ayn Rand. I love it. I love Bloomberg. Bloomberg loves events like this, and we're honored to be a part of it, and thank you guys for including us. And happy to also talk or mentor in other ways, too.
All right, so we are almost done. Thank you so much, Meredith. That was awesome. We're going to be seeing you next year.
Right?
Here, right?
This,
okay,
this again.
Great. Awesome.
Sponsorship secured.
Thank you, sponsorship. On a final note, we actually want to just quickly address the elephant in the room that no one's addressed yet. Hey, guys. There's a few of you out there. Hi. We are delighted to have male attendees here because you are really an important part of the conversation too, if you didn't know that already. We're gonna just go ahead and refer to you for the rest of the day, not by your names, but by my ambassador. So you're official my ambassadors of the summit. Welcome.
And speaking of which, our favorite man ambassador is here today.
He's here.
You might know him differently. Actually, he's the president of Georgetown University. Yes, that's a clap. Yay!
Yay, he's here. That's awesome.
We would like to thank a very special member of our host committee, President DeGioia. He has been exceptionally supportive of our efforts. President DeGioia has been a member of the Georgetown community since coming here as an undergrad in the fall of 1975. Okay. He's been here for a while. He has served in a variety of senior administrative and faculty roles here for more than 3 decades. Under his leadership as president since 2001, he's helped to define and strengthen Georgetown as a premier institution for education and research, launched 2 historic fundraising campaigns, and continued to strengthen our Catholic and Jesuit identity. We would now like to welcome President DeGioia to the stage.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, Helen and Kendall, and for those kind words and for your extraordinary work to bring us all together today. This is an exciting moment for Georgetown, and I can't tell you what an honor it is for me to be here with all of you. What you have accomplished is truly inspiring and demonstrates the difference that we can make, the good we can accomplish, the impact that we can have when we come together as a community. And I want to thank Ava and Alana for your leadership in founding the Georgetown University Women in Leadership Organization. The community that you have built and the conversations that you have ignited have truly enriched our community, for which I'm grateful. And I wish to express my appreciation to Meredith and Bloomberg for their support. I can't wait to tell Madeline that you were here this morning and had a chance to be a part of all this. And also to all of our speakers today for sharing their wealth of experience and insight. And to all of the members of our host committee for their contributions in making this our inaugural Own It Summit such a success. And finally, to all of you who are here today, your commitment to women's leadership, your continual dedication to growing as leaders, to deepening your understanding of impactful, authentic leadership into becoming advocates and supporters of one another is essential to our shared work of creating the context in which women's leadership and each of us can flourish. This is what we seek to do here at Georgetown, to always ask the question, how can we as a community continue to create opportunities and provide the necessary support that allows our students and all of our members to develop a deep understanding of their talents, their passions, and their values? How do we help one another bring that understanding out into the world to affect change, to make a contribution, to lead? How do we bring out the best in each other, and through that, bring out the best in ourselves? Leadership can take many forms. It crosses every sector, is expressed in numerous ways, and encompasses multiple dimensions. This is why today's engagement of the multifaceted issues shaping women's leadership, from business and entrepreneurship to media and politics to diversity, is so important. By developing a deeper understanding, we all are better equipped to build the context for one another to grow as leaders and to become better leaders ourselves. So today's summit represents an exciting moment at Georgetown, a moment in which groups across the university, from students to alumni, faculty, administration, and staff, are coming together to more fully align support and resources for advancing women's leadership. I encourage each of you to look for upcoming opportunities for professional development, networking, and conversations about the issues shaping women's leadership and lives today. So it's now my distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce to you a woman who is already known to everyone in this room for the extraordinary contributions she has made through her career as a journalist, through her philanthropic and advocacy work, and as a leading advocate for women today. Maria Shriver is a Georgetown alum, a Peabody and Emmy Award-winning journalist and producer, a 6-time New York Times best-selling author, and an NBC News special anchor covering the shifting roles, emerging power, and evolving needs of women in modern life. Since 2009, Maria has produced an extraordinary investigative series, Shriver Reports, which chronicles and explores the shifts in American culture and society that are affecting women today. The most recent report revealed that 1 in 3 American women live on the brink of poverty, and that 28 million children depend on these women. One such woman, Katrina Gilbert, was the subject of Maria's HBO documentary film, Paycheck to Paycheck, which premiered last month. She is a longtime and dedicated member of our community. It's always a privilege for me to welcome her back to Georgetown. It is now my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you Ms. Maria Shriver.
Hi. Good morning. Morning, everybody. And thank you for getting up so early to be here today. Thank you, Jack, for that. Thank you, Bloomberg, for supporting these young women in their ideas and their dreams. And thank you for having the gumption, the idea, and the energy and the persistence to pull this off. I know Alana from Los Angeles. When I ran a women's conference in California while I was First Lady, and we invited a lot of the students who went to my children's high school to come down, and then they started a young women's conference at their high school. And when she was accepted to Georgetown, she said to me, if we can ever get a girls' club there and a conference there, would it be okay? Will you come? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. That was like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and I didn't know it'd be at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. But I'm really proud of you and everybody in the club coming together, and proud of all of you for coming here today. I thought a lot about what I could say to you. I didn't have any, quote, prepared remarks, but I think you will hear a lot of different things today. You will be told to pursue your careers, run for office, sit on a board, do all of these things. And I would hope that today, my hope for you is that you will expand your concept of what leadership is and what success is. That's really what I hope for you. I hope you will listen to the advice that you hear today, but I hope you will remember that there is no one way to live your life. There is no one way to be successful. There is no one way to become a leader. I hope that you will follow your way, that you will listen to your own gut and know that just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. I was raised by a fearless, trailblazing woman who started Special Olympics and was just consumed with fight. And that was a really great thing because she got what she wanted to get done. And Jack was just saying to me, you know, you were one of the third or fourth classes at Georgetown when you came in. And a lot of the women of my era were filled with fight. And I think what you can be filled with is compassion and consciousness and caring, and you can bring that to the workplace because there's not enough of that in corporate America, in political America, in leadership at all. There's not enough compassion. There's not enough understanding. There's not enough leadership when it comes to that. And the Shriver report that Jack was talking about, as women have gone out into the workplace, a lot of women who get great educations like you're getting here at Georgetown, who come from good families, and who are able to be educated like this do very well. But there's millions and millions of women that are left behind. And I hope as you go out and become successful, you will remember that there are a lot of women who are living paycheck to paycheck, millions of them. There are a lot of women who support other women as they go out in terms of taking care of their children, taking care of aging parents, taking care of your lives so that your lives can be successful. I hope you will remember those women as you head out into the workplace. And so I hope today that you will remember all of those kinds of women and that you will reach out to men. I ran, as I said, this big women's conference in California, and the bigger it got, the more I thought about that we were talking to ourselves. And as a mother of 2 sons, I think it's really important for your generation to understand that men need to know what you're talking about. Men need to know what you're going through. Men are being asked to be different kinds of fathers, different kinds of men, and different kinds of leaders. And they will rise up to that challenge, I think, if they're invited into the conversation. They won't rise up if we attack them and shame them and ostracize them. So I'm a big believer that that is a great opportunity for your generation to include men in this process. Invite them in, tell them what it's like, invite your parents in. You can be much more inclusive than my generation was. And I think that's a great opportunity in front of you. And finally, I would also say to you that choose to be mothers. That is a great form of leadership as well. I think my generation was told that you have to get out there, you have to go to law school, you have to get to the top of, you have to run for office, you have to do all these things, and what you're doing in your home doesn't really matter. And I would say that was one of the big misconceptions and was one of the most negative things I think that was done for my generation. Because what you do in your home, how you raise another human being, how you partner with another human being will be, in the end, the thing that you are the most proud of. And it will teach you everything you need to know about how to be a leader, how you raise a child, how you build self-esteem in that human being, how you make them feel loved, how you make them feel successful to go out into the world. That will be one of the greatest sources of leadership you ever bring to your life and to this country. There is a lot going on in this country that is the result of children not having somebody to love them, not having somebody to care for them, not having somebody to lead them. So I hope, once again, that you expand your idea of leadership from the home, from within yourself, and take it out into your workplace. That you remember small is not necessarily small, that big is not necessarily big, and that you can have an impact in almost everything you do. I try with my own work at NBC and in the Shriver report, I try to follow what I call my 4 I's. I try to inform, I try to inspire, I try to ignite, and I try to have impact. And I try to stay, in those 4 I's. I think with all my work, does it inform? Are there facts here that I can share? Is this an inspiring story? Is this going to uplift people? Is this going to help people? Is this going to ignite them in their own lives to believe that they can be what I call architects of change? And in the end, is this story going to have any impact? Am I spending my time doing it for any reason whatsoever? So I hope today you think perhaps about those 4 I's yourself, because you all have tremendous influence. You're incredible individuals, and you have incredible opportunity here. So my hope, as I say today, that this is more than just a day, that this is more than just a summit, and this is more than just a conference. In California, I said that our conference was a conference with a conscience, and that it was more than just a day. And my hope, if it was successful, that it would live on in all of you as you go through your days and your weeks ahead. And so I hope that's what you will create here, is a conference with a conscience that goes beyond just today, and that you talk about things like that, consciousness and compassion, and you talk about putting the word career has the word care in it, and that you emphasize to young women that there needs to be care put into the career and put into the workplace. That's what you can do that my generation could not do. So I leave you today. Every day I wake up and I say this little, I'll abbreviate it, poem from St. Teresa, and it says, "May today there be peace within. May I trust God that I am exactly where I am meant to be." And I hope that each and every one of you feel today some peace within, that you feel you are exactly where you are meant to be, and that you take what you learn here today and share it and pay it forward and pass it on, because you're blessed to be here at this university with the faith-based qualities that it has, the community that has been created here. And I hope you take that out into the world, because when I think back at Georgetown, I do think about parties, but I do really think, I think about so much. It's a different conference, but I really, in my work, what I have learned, when I fall back, when I think about my Georgetown education, I think back about the ethics that I was taught here, because all through your career, you will come to forks in the road where you will be asked to do things and make decisions where you will need to fall back on what you were taught at this place. What is right and wrong, what is kind and good, what is not. And that's what Georgetown did for me. And it's what my parents did for me, and it's what I hope I pass on to young women and young men who work for me or work alongside me. So I want to thank you for inviting me here today. I'm sorry I can't stay the whole day because I'm going back to California. My daughter just wrote a book for young people, men and women, when they get out of school and they go, now what? And everybody's telling you, lean in, get married. I just read this book, was reading in the magazine here. You have to pick your husband right away and get out of school and birth. And I'm like, you do not. You do not. I really, you don't. I really hope that you're not in a hurry. That was also another mistake I think that I made. I was in such a hurry. And I hope you guys, I talk about taking a pause, take a beat. This is such a great experience. Life is such a great experience. And you don't have to be in a hurry to get married, to have a baby, to be number one. It's a really long road out there. It's a long marathon, and everybody's asking you at every age, now what are you going to do? I did paycheck to paycheck, and I was at the screen. What's next? I'm like, the thing hasn't even gone on the air. Take a breath. You know, we're not in such a hurry. So experience it, take it in, pause. You will find your soulmate. You will find your passion. You will find your way, and it will be your way. And that's what will make it different. So once again, thank you. And I have the pleasure now of introducing a young woman that I met when I was First Lady of California. And I had, as I said, this women's conference. And I started a program called the Minerva Awards, which were based on the goddess Minerva, who was on the California State Seal. And I wanted to honor women who were what I call architects of change. And that was in all areas of human endeavor. So if you wanted to change the lunch program at your school, if you wanted to build gardens at your school, if you wanted to run for office, I tried to honor all different aspects of humanity. And I picked Minerva, as I said, because she was on the State Seal, but because she embodies, I think, what it takes to be a human being. Because at times, you have to put your helmet on and you have to be a warrior. And at times, you have to take it off and you have to be a goddess or a god of compassion, wisdom, peace, and justice, which is what Minerva exemplifies. And so we did this at the end of the conference, which was 35,000 people. And I asked this young woman named Azur Antoinette to write a poem. And it's really, poem isn't almost the right word for it, but to write about what Minerva embodied and match that up with what young women from all walks of life, but particularly from unprivileged walks of life, are experiencing on what I call the front lines of humanity. And she brought the house down. And she has been bringing the house down all across this country, speaking at young women's conferences all over the country. But she has an incredible energy, drive, desire to make an impact and a difference. And she has a way with words that you will not forget. So it's a pleasure to introduce to you Azur Antoinette, and have a great day. Thank you.
Hello and good morning. So I was sitting at my hotel yesterday. It's a brief story, and Kendall and Helen reached out to me a couple of months ago on Facebook, where I usually am, just sitting there hanging out. Yeah, I don't even know how I got that message. So, you know, we start talking, and you know, on Facebook Messenger, it tells people that you've read it, which is a little bit invasive, because you're like, maybe I don't want to get back to you right away, you know. But I was pretty excited about it, and I remember working with them, some of the ladies at Brentwood, and so I was like, yeah, you know, I'll come, I'll do it. That sounds awesome. And I wrote this poem, and I was pretty excited about it, and I've been on tour for, it seems like 2 years, but there's been breaks, so it's been a lot of traveling, a lot of running around. And I'm sitting in the hotel last night. I just got here from Omaha. Don't go there. And if you're from Omaha, it's cool. I can't. So I get here, I'm super tired. The people at the hotel were not excited to see me, and I was just like, it's not my fault that I don't know why you're mad. I don't know. So I get in the room, I'm hanging out. I took like 7 BuzzFeed quizzes about like, you know, all the different characters and who I am in Scandal, because I feel really excited about being next to Olivia Pope, which she's not here. So, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking about all this work, and I'm talking to Helen, and I'm talking to all these ladies, and they are just killing it. And I told them this morning when I got in the backstage, I said, you know, I pretty much only recall eating Cheetos and trying to find like a Scantron in college. Like, I was like, I have to get back, where are we going? You know, so I wasn't putting on a young women's conference. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all of this ignition and passion that they have. And I had been practicing the poem that I was gonna do, and I wrote it a little while ago. And all of a sudden, which this always happens to me, I was like, I'm gonna write something new. It's 11 p.m. So I hit Kendall up on Facebook, as if she's not already stressed about the day. Everybody's tweeting and very stressed out. I'm like, they're probably asleep here. And I was like, you wanna hear something exciting? And she's like, yeah, I need exciting. And I was like, I just wrote a new poem for tomorrow. And she says, cutting it a little close, Azur. and I was like, it's fine. Like, I got it. Don't, like, I promise you, it's gonna be awesome. And she's like, for sure. So I want you to know it's going to be okay. I'm really excited to be here. I have to give a special shout out to one of my corporate partners, TD Ameritrade, that made sure that I got here today. And I told Helen and Kendall that I was so excited to just be in the midst of young millennials doing so much while you're here. Because there's this epidemic of being inspired when you're 4 or 5, and then there's nothing else until you're 40. And everyone has been at Talbot's. Yeah, which is a lot. Talbot's is really intense. My mom loves it there. You know, those Chico's commercials are always so weird. She like peeks out of the side and they're like, Chico's. And you're kind of like, cool. So I think it's awesome that they're doing it right now while you're in school. So this poem is dedicated to the ladies that put on, oh, I know, Chico's is crazy, right? You guys are still thinking about it? It's awkward. Now you're gonna see those commercials and be like, she's so right. So this is dedicated to all of you for doing such a phenomenal job. There comes a time when it is hours after midnight, and the moments left are just very close to dawn. The left side of your brain is bruised from all of the logical process, and your heart can do nothing but beat in a samba time and ache. When 1 a.m. turns to 2, which turns to 4:30, every statement turns to question. How did you get here? Will any of this even work? Why did I allow myself to think that this was possible? You see the wrinkles, the furrow in your brow, and you think, I never asked to be brilliant. Ordinary was just not something that interested me. So you sit. You watch the clock inch forward. You sit, watching the sun stretch its arms out over the horizon as if to stretch for a day that will be far too long for its liking. You think, I will never be done. Changing this world is thankless, and someday I'm going to need a pat on the back. Because yesterday, every single mistake I have ever made was called into question. Yesterday, I allowed someone else's misplaced judgment to help me in the quest of doubting every part of myself that I know to be absolute. But this dawn, I am pacing in my hallway. This dawn, I am begging my head against the wall. This dawn, I am beating my chest, making sure this lion heart still has the guts to roar. This flower child, this dynamo turned whistleblow, she knows that the sun probably thinks it never gets enough rest. And the sun thinks that it got the short end of the stick because people always seem to quote the moon and the stars when they're in love. But if the sun, which is now over my head, full of smile and ray and greenhouse gases, can shine every day, even when the cumulus and nimbus and stratus don't want it to be seen and cause an overcast, then she, this fire-breathing flower child dynamo, will forget the sleep today. And when she grows weary, she'll remember that she can finally rest when her grandchildren are wildly successful. She'll cast aside the naysay. She'll put away her insecurities that were placed on her by people who were never taught about the dimension of their own wingspan. She'll claim her mistakes. She'll acknowledge her faults. And she'll say thank you for every single compliment that she receives. She will not shirk. She will never dodge. She will amplify. She will know that everyone is coming to smell the roses that she helped bloom. She will know that everyone travels stateswide to watch a cherry blossom sing in the glory of the District of Columbia. She'll admit to being human, and a damn fine human being at that. She'll be fully arrived and ready to go. She'll take the day. Chaotic, robust, uncalled, and triumphant. And she will own it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Helen Brosnan, Kara Swisher, Steve Case, and Gene Case.
I'm back. All right, so full disclosure, I'm completely geeking out right now because these are the people that I incessantly follow on Twitter, like these 3 specific people. I've tweeted at all of them probably over hundreds of times. Kara Swisher once responded to me. I told about 6 people about it. I think, Steve, I think you followed me once and then unfollowed me. But anyway, I'm just kidding. But I'm really freaking out. This is like dream team here anyway. So this conversation is really going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it. So Kara Swisher here. She is the co-executive editor of Recode, newly started project, really, really awesome. Prior to Recode, Swisher worked at the Wall Street Journal. Over the last 11 years, she has co-produced All Things Digital, huge, amazing conferences, a major high-tech conference. Previously, she worked as a reporter at the Washington Post. She's also the author of AOL.com, how Steve Case, that's him, beat Bill Gates, nailed the netheads, and made millions in the war for the web. Published by Times Business Books in July 1998. The sequel, There Must Be a Pony in Here Somewhere, the AOL Time Warner debacle, and The Quest for a Digital Future was published in the fall of 2003. She's actually a School of Foreign Service alum, class of 84, really? 84, I'm wrong here, 84. Sorry, young. Steve Case is chairman and CEO of Revolution and co-founder of America Online, one of America's most accomplished entrepreneurs and philanthropists. Case co-founded America Online in 1985, and under his leadership, AOL became the world's largest and most valuable internet company and the most successful stock of the 1990s. In 2005, Case founded venture capital firm Revolution, focused on investing in and building disruptive, innovative, consumer-facing companies, including Zipcar, Living Social, AddThis. Steve's passion for helping entrepreneurs remains a driving force. He was founding chair of the Startup America Partnership, which joined forces with Startup Weekend, so he's very busy. He was also a member of President Obama's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness. So again, busy. Gene Case is an actively engaged philanthropist and pioneer in the world of interactive technologies. Her career in the private sector spanned nearly 2 decades before she and her husband, Steve Case, created the Case Foundation in 1997. Jean serves on the National Geographic Society Board of Trustees and many, many other boards. She also serves on the advisory board of the Harvard Business School Social Enterprise Initiative, the Brain Trust Accelerator Fund, the U.S. National Advisory Board, really incredible things. Jean is also serving as executive and resident at Georgetown University's Global Social Enterprise Initiative. Jean has served in 2 appointed roles leading strategic public-private efforts, including the President's Council on Service and Civic Participation, to which she was appointed as chair by President George W. Bush and as co-chair of the U.S.-Palestinian Partnership. So again, we're really, really excited to have you here. It's going to be an incredible conversation. Thank you.
You know, when she reads that, I feel like we could just die right now. We've done enough.
Always sounds good, doesn't
I know,
it?
Exactly. A couple things very quickly. This is an astonishing conference. Helen, I'm a huge fan of yours, too. Like, I'm a fangirl of yours. You all have done an astonishing job on this. And let me just say, as an alumni of Georgetown University from 1980 to 84, this place has changed. When I was here, they didn't much love the ladies or the gays, and so I can't believe I'm sitting here right now in this room. And let me just say, that has a lot to do with Jack, who is astonishing, who has done astonishing things here, and really opened up this university as the way universities should be, which is always open-minded and open to new ideas and innovation. And you two ladies, we don't want to follow you. We just wanted to leave. We were going to slip out the side. Fantastic speeches from you, which is wonderful. I have an idea for you. I'm going to get you in front of a lot of white dudes, and you need to change their minds right now. All right, anytime. So anyways, we're going to talk here with Steve and Jean. I'm going to take your picture first and put it up on Twitter, on the Twitter.
Hold on, let me take a picture. You're taking a picture. That'd be
all right.
really
Okay, good.
fun.
You know, Selfie is the new selfish. I'm taking this picture. I have about 1 million Twitter followers, which I'm not going to say is much more than Steve's, but
But it is. You just did.
Yeah,
We're already starting.
By several 100,000. But anyway, but you did found America Online, so that's great. So we're going to start a little bit talking about the past and then talk a lot about what they're doing now, because what they're doing now is super interesting, and a lot about women in tech. Steve and Jean and I met more than 20 years ago when I went out to, when Jean called me on the phone, when I was at the Washington Post, I was covering this new thing called, at the time, I don't remember what it was called, Interactive
Online services.
Online services. And I was at the Washington Post covering it. And she called me up and said, you should come out here. We have this small company in Vienna, Virginia. It was behind the American Cafe, behind a car dealership.
Good memory.
And she convinced me to come out there to talk to them. They were not the biggest company. They were actually the third. They were behind CompuServe and others. And I met Steve at an office where you could see him from the reception desk. And he proceeded to tell me how AOL was going to take over Time Warner and all the biggest companies of the day.
Did not
You did,
say
absolutely.
That.
You said we're going to be bigger than AT&T, which you were for a little bit. So we're going to, but what's really important is the kind of groundbreaking stuff that AOL did in consumerizing the internet and bringing what was a Defense Department initiative to the people. And I want to talk a little bit about that and how it's changed, and then a little more about what they've done since then in terms of impact investing and pushing women in women's issues among the many they have pushed, and entrepreneurship and innovation. So let's start. How do you feel about this whole thing that's happened? It is only 20 years, but it feels like 400 since then, each of you.
Well, it's actually sadly been 30 years. I moved to this area 30 years ago. We started AOL 29 years ago. And I feel great about it. When we started, only 3% of people were online, and the people online were only using it an hour a week. And now the fact that it's part of everyday life, and people are using it many hours a day, I think it has had the change the world impact that we were hoping for. So that's great to see. And I think we're now on the cusp of what will be kind of the third wave of the internet. The first wave was really getting people to understand what it was, getting people connected. Obviously, AOL played a role, and Cisco and a lot of other companies played a role in sort of building awareness of the internet, building the core infrastructure of the internet. That was sort of the first wave. The second wave, it's been the last 15 years or so, it's been building on top of the internet, products, services, apps on top of the internet. Facebook and Twitter and so forth are good examples of that. That's sort of been the second wave. And the third wave, which is just the beginning, is instead of building the internet or building on top of the internet, it's really integrating the internet in everything we do, and transforming things like learning and healthcare and transportation, things like that. We're just on the early side of it. But the reason I think that's important and sort of relevant to this conversation about women in leadership is I think the skill set required to build a third wave internet company will be different than the first or second wave. And it's going to require a lot more about collaboration and partnership. It's a great example of the African proverb. You want to go quickly, you can go alone, but if you want to go far, you must go together. Partnership and collaboration, which was a big deal in the first wave, not very big deal in the second wave, is going to be a huge deal in the third wave. And that's not to say that women are the only ones who can drive partnership and collaboration, but they are generally better at it than men. So I think there's a huge opportunity for women to kind of lead this next wave, this third wave of the internet, which is not really just the internet, it's also how it transforms society and transforms some of the most important aspects of our lives.
So Jean, let's talk a little bit about, you were very early into this. You had done a lot of other things before this. What attracted you at that time to this sector?
Well, it's funny because I know there are some social enterprise students in the audience this morning, and I think Georgetown really has social enterprise in its DNA. You guys are defining this generation of technology in a lot of ways, but in all things where we're looking at changing the world. And as I look back, we've often said AOL actually could have been a nonprofit. Because if you'd come in the earliest days and walked those halls, what you would have heard us talking about was democratizing access to ideas and information and communication. So was it a business and a business model? It was, but it really was a mission-based company. And we believed that society and communities across the world would be made better because of this exciting new technology. one of the things I've been really jazzed by in my work at the Case Foundation is looking at this generation and then looking at how technology is evolving. And Kara, you remember, in the earliest days of technology, even from what you followed historically and what we've lived through together, it was always about, well, who are the business clients? How can we get the corporate accounts, et cetera? And what we've really seen is technology change, right? And it goes a little bit to what Steve was talking about. And we focus on this idea of tech for good at the foundation. If you think about social media, in the old days, the big computers were looking at corporate clients. It was, white guys in business suits were their targets, et cetera. Then there were some consumer products that came out. But technology today is thinking about how can we apply this for good to change the world right at the time of inception. Social media has been about leveling the playing field, bringing new good things to life, connecting communities together, et cetera, really from its start. And we've never really seen technology in the beginning think about those things before they think about
But something you've done, it's interesting, thankfully for explaining all those discs were for social good that you send out. Now I know. Well, there were messages in there embedded in those discs. But the concept of what you were doing, you were creating a business and democratizing it and giving people voices. Now, one of the early things that happened at AOL was women's voices.
That's what I was just going to say to you.
African American voices, Hispanic. It was one of the first places you guys did a lot of that kind of stuff.
Brought the gay community together. I mean, you might have seen them as, lots of discs, and there were lots of discs. But we were creating a global community sort of as one, but also bringing together a lot of communities that didn't have a voice and a platform prior to the online world being out there, and connected them together in powerful ways.
The big bet we made, and it was really true, by the way, I should explain my shoes here, because I don't normally wear funky shoes, and when I got up this morning and put these on, Jean said, "What are you wearing?" This is out of respect for Georgetown and social enterprise. You see it says Sweet Green. We recently invested in Sweet Green. To the extent you think it's like trying to make a fashion statement, no, I'm just trying to pay respects for Georgetown and entrepreneurship and what the founders have done. But going back to the core question, our bet 30 years ago, and it's proven to be still true today, is that the killer app for the internet, and really the soul of the medium, was going to be people. People interacting with each other, both interacting with people they already knew in ways to stay more connected, and connecting to people they don't yet know but should know because they have some kind of shared interest. And now it's social media, and it's evolved in a different kind of way. But the idea of people, community, has always been been the core.
Which was unusual because it was mostly technologists mostly don't like people.
Right, exactly.
And are seeking to kill them someday, I believe. But no, I don't mean that. But I mean, I'm saying it wasn't unusual at the time. A lot of this stuff was very difficult to use. It wasn't accessible.
That's right.
So, one of the things that I think has happened still in the internet, a lot, even despite the Facebooks and the Twitters, is that a lot of the linking, the technology gets in the way of things as opposed to being invisible. I don't think any of us got up this morning and said, I'm on the electrical grid, and it is turning on my blow dryer, or, I'm on the plumbing grid. And we don't think of the technologies that give us ease of our day. When one of the things you guys did was make it easier. I mean, I think it was America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's number one. I remember that, which I thought was super important. What, from your perspective, has that changed? I still think there's still technology in the way of things in terms of making things easier, even though I think things with mobile have changed rather drastically. But it's still about us learning it versus it learning and helping us rather than the other way around.
Yeah, well, and I think, you mentioned impact investing earlier. And, I think it's important to realize that the potential to change the world is not just with technology, right? And Kara mentioned impact investing, and I know the students here know this subject well. But just as a reminder for those of you that aren't that familiar with it, it's this new focus on companies that have both a social return and a financial return. And those can be technology plus, okay? And Steve likes to talk about every company today is a technology company because you can't really run a company without integrating some form of technology. But this whole idea around impact investing, I think, will broaden beyond technology those companies that have the ability to go out there and change the world in a really meaningful way. We talked about them in sort of the earliest comments Steve made, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it continues to connect communities together. And I just think there's a lot of really exciting potential there.
But technology is often a way people are connecting now from
Correct.
all over. I mean, just from the earliest days, I went out, I was one of the who went out for this event. I think I'm the only reporter who was there when a bunch of quilters. Do you remember the quilters?
Right, we brought the quilters together.
So
we did.
These people made a quilt on there. This is when it struck me how powerful the internet was. There was a bunch of quilters.
From all over the
older
nation.
women mostly.
Mhm, that's right.
That got together and they made a quilt with a big AOL symbol in the middle.
Right, and they'd done it from
all over the world, which I thought was interesting. And then they brought cookies, and they were like petting Steve the whole time. It was really interesting because he became this. It was cute. It was cute. Because they became this. What struck me was this idea of bringing people together. And one of the things that these technologies do, whether it be these healthcare apps that are coming out,
Right.
these quantifiable self, these driving things, educational things like the Khan Academy, is these are useful things. To me, a lot of the internet now is being used on somewhat, I love a photo sharing app, as you know, but they're not, when does it shift over? Because one of the concepts I'm writing about a lot now is that there's a lot of big minds chasing small ideas in Silicon Valley, rather than these big ideas, rather than, save for possibly, Google is doing some really innovative things in energy and other areas, but where does that, technology obviously can play a major role in climate change, in education, in bringing talent from all over the world. How does that shift? How do we shift from this sort of, I'm playing Angry Birds right now, be quiet, to this other form of this being invisible and useful to us?
I think your critique is fair. I mean, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but I think it's gotten the second wave of companies has been dominated by a little bit like the movie business or the music business, essentially a hit-driven business, and it's tough to compete because it's tough to get noticed. But if you suddenly are the app, whether WhatsApp or Snapchat or what have you, that somehow breaks through the clutter, you're kind of number one with a bullet, and you create enormous value. And for entrepreneurs, that's been appealing, and for investors, that's been appealing. They generally don't require a lot of capital. It's super competitive, so there are a lot of failures, but if it's successful, it's super successful. And that's fine. That has been this second wave. But I think we do need more entrepreneurs and investors to take a longer-term, change the world, built to last orientation and tackle some of the big societal problems that also do create enormous opportunity. They're tougher to do. They are going to require a longer-term, patient, perseverance strategy. I think most of the revolutions in learning, the revolutions in health will happen in an evolutionary way and take, like AOL did, a decade or more. I mean, people, when the internet kind of hit its stride in the mid-90s, I guess, people said, oh, that kind of like came out of nowhere. We had been at it for more than a decade. Some had been at it for more than 2 decades. Right. It takes a while before these things kind of really break. So being able to tackle a problem and bring that kind of longer-term perspective and recognize it's going to require partnership and collaboration. It's not just dropping an app in the App Store and like hoping you're successful.
So, but the concept of disruption is a big deal in Silicon Valley, and the idea of disrupting all kinds of industries.
And not just Silicon Valley.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the broader idea of technology.
Right.
We've disrupted dating, okay? Tinder is fantastic. Great. But how do you disrupt things that really, I don't mean to say dating doesn't matter, and Tinder is fantastic. Again, great app. But when do you disrupt the really important things?
Well, maybe it's just because of the perch I sit on at the Case Foundation, and the second perch.
And how do you do it? Can you talk a little bit
Sure.
about it?
The second perch is right here at Georgetown, right? Helen nicely mentioned that I'm executive in residence at the business school. And let me tell you, if you hang out with these folks long enough, you're going to say, set your watches, because they see a different world, and they're driving a different world. And it's not about for us to prescribe to them. It's in their DNA. They're not bringing the same old silos. They're not thinking outside the box. They're saying there is no box. We're going to recreate it. And honestly, Kara, their ideas around application of technology and how we can build new things that are meaningful and significant, I'm seeing this play out in clean water. I'm seeing this play out in energy. I'm seeing this play out as solutions for the problems that plague our communities. And, today it's nascent. But trust me, this generation is creating a different world.
Give me an example of something
you're
working on.
Sure, I'll give you a great example. So in the world of clean water, for instance, there's traditionally been a problem of knowing who has it and whether they have an intervention in their community, is it working? So bright ideas, entrepreneurs came together and said, well, you know, everybody has like a mobile phone. Even in the developing world, everybody has a mobile phone. Could we possibly let citizens own their own future? Could they be responsible for telling us, do they have clean water and is their intervention working? So today, there's a global platform. You know, it was only 5 years ago, we spent $120,000 to find out in 10 countries if there was access to water and where the interventions were working. Today, it doesn't cost you anything because citizens are responsible for telling via their mobile phone, I have it, it's working, I'm okay. And when you think of the power of those kind of things, translated to our communities here, translated to remote communities around the world, it will change things. But my bottom line point is, you know, we're all up here roughly of the same generation. And I think if we had someone from the audience come up and join this conversation, they're just looking. I mean, President DeGioia, I know you see this all the time, and you've been so great at tapping that here. They see the world in an entirely different way and the application of technology. So will there still be cat pictures and all that? Absolutely.
And by the way, there should be.
There should be. Let's have a little fun while we're changing the world, right?
But there also is sort of
hamsters, dogs, other things.
There's also, I think, a broader kind of macro trend here that I think it's worth talking about, and again, ties in with the theme of this conference. I think people 50 years ago, and even 25 years ago, who wanted to change the world, thought the way to do that was either go into government, and many did, or go into the social sector. And by the way, in the social sector in the last half a century, some of the most powerful movements have been started by women, including Maria's mother, Eunice Shriver. If you ever haven't seen the speech she gave, I think in 1968 in Soldiers Field in Chicago, launching Special Olympics, it's unbelievable. Or Teach for America most recently. People attack these problems through the prism of serving in government, which is a great thing to do if you're willing to put up with some of the complexities of that these days, or focus on the social sector. I think there's a growing recognition, particularly in the past decade, particularly fueled by the internet, particularly fueled by what's beginning to happen in terms of leveling the playing field, in terms of access to capital, things like crowdfunding I think will be very helpful, that maybe business is a great way to change the world. That a lot of people will say that the biggest person to change the world in the last decade or two may have been Steve Jobs. And that was through the prism of a business, prism of innovation, prism of technology. And what's beginning to happen, I think it will accelerate, is the blurring of the lines between kind of for-profit business, particularly entrepreneurial business, and social impact. And the whole area of impact investing, kind of B Corps and basically companies that have a broader purpose is quite fertile, quite growing, quite attracting a lot of interest. And those are the kind of companies that I think are going to dominate in this
When you
next
talk
wave.
about that, this is an issue. I was watching you last week on Meet the Press, this idea of government fixing things and create, I'm on this new thing that government's not going to create jobs, entrepreneurialism. Not everyone who's an entrepreneur, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. But how do you, and then I want to get in before, we're going to have some questions from the audience. They wanted to take some questions. How do you get people to become entrepreneurial? Because that is how new jobs are created. I think about even our own little thing. We had a recent event, and there were 50 people in the room, 50 families that we created out of one single idea. It was very gratifying, but it wasn't created any other means but our ideas and stuff. So how do you get our country to that? And then secondly, I want to get into the issue of women in technology and in these entrepreneur fields, because it's really, most women are the biggest users of all these technologies and are represented in so badly across the spectrum. We're going to talk about that later today. But talk a little bit about how to get people in that entrepreneurial zone, and then talk about how to move women into that area.
Sure. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about Startup America? Steve chairs something that we launched at the White House a few years ago called Startup America. It has now merged and is called Up Global, but our work with female entrepreneurs in that.
Yeah, as you said, the government doesn't create jobs, but does create the climate that makes it possible or difficult to create jobs. But the job creation engine in this country is startups, young, high-growth companies. The Kauffman Foundation does research on this. As they say, 40 million jobs were created in the last 3 decades by these young, high-growth companies. So if you want to grow jobs, you want to grow the economy, you got to focus on on startups. That's the main thing. Part of that is focusing on startups all over the country, not just in Silicon Valley, not just in New York. There's this phenomenon, so the rise of the rest, I think, is beginning to take hold, where entrepreneurs can be anywhere because it's easier and cheaper to start companies, but you need to create the ecosystems in those regions, create some network density, create some connections, collaboration, partnerships to make that possible. Up Global, which is this merger of Startup America and Startup Weekend, just launched recently, a week or so ago, a new initiative called Startup Women. And there will be a series of over at least a dozen Startup Weekends dedicated to women, trying to launch 1,500 startups that are women, women founders, and just a small piece of what needs to happen on a broader scale. But I think it's possible, particularly as this third wave kicks in, and for the reasons I mentioned, and it's going to be possible once crowdfunding. And for those people who don't understand it, the Congress passed a law 2 years ago that essentially allowed you to use the internet to raise money for companies. You could raise money through project funding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo if you want to write a book or a documentary, and it's been very successful, but up until that law passed, you couldn't raise it for a company. The reason that's important for women is the data is still not so good in terms of venture-backed, women-led companies, about 13%. But if you look at the crowdfunding platforms, it's like 40%. And part of the reason is it really is sort of a leveler playing field. People are investing in the ideas and then less about who you know.
I know it does sound good, but Jean is right. It's awful, the situation. I mean, right now in my world, I have 2 sons, and I deal with men. I should have testosterone poisoning, really. I should be dying right now. But it's really...
We should merge, because we have 5 kids, and 4 of them are women. So
excellent.
Together, we could
Let's betroth our children. That would be great. But I think betrothal should rethink the whole idea. But the question is, why is that? And we think about it a lot in Silicon Valley. And one of the things, I write about it a lot.
Right.
And one of the few people that do write about it a lot, because nobody seems to notice that there's no diversity in the room, there's no women in the room, there's no, and I on some level you feel like it's not evil. I don't want to say that, but they almost ignore it in a way, and they always say, oh, it's a meritocracy. And yet I'm like, how is it? And I get into arguments a lot because they're like, oh, it's a meritocracy. I'm like, how is it that 100% of your board is men? Is that they're all so good that there isn't one good woman? And so one of the things, I wrote a piece, I did one called The Men and No Women of Facebook. This was pre-Sheryl Sandberg, but still it's pretty much all men. And then I did the Men and No Women of boards of companies, of all these internet companies, most of which have primarily female, majority female consumers. And one of them, the head of Groupon, Andrew Mason, who is a very sensitive New Age male, let me just say, as many of these entrepreneurs are. And he called me up and he goes, I feel bad about this lack of women on my board. Thank you for pointing it out. And I was like, why didn't you notice? Like, and then he was asking for help. What has to happen, Jean?
So I think that, there's a lot to be said for transparency and having the dialogue. And I think it's also helpful if we don't start with the idea that it's someone's fault. And, when Helen and Kendall opened up this morning, they talked about finding solutions. Right. And when I spend time with young women, and by the way, if you're in the audience, I want to underscore the point about the importance of mentorship. Because I think having mentors to build you up, to buck you up, to help you with your script, et cetera. But I think if there's honest dialogue, not just about women in technology, but women more broadly, I think there are some gender tendencies, and I want to be really careful to say tendencies. Doesn't mean every woman has them or every man has them, but it does mean there are some things that are more common in the gender. And one of them is we're just generally less comfortable with risk-taking. And in many ways, that's a beautiful thing, because we take care of our children. We're put on this earth to raise children. We're the ones that give birth. But that has a downside. If you've got a great idea or you want to create a movement, you have to get out of your comfort zone. We are not as good at self-advocating. And if you've been following some of the recent, and there's been a lot of talk about the gap in income between men and women, Carnegie Mellon just came out with a study that said women just feel less comfortable making the fearless ask, saying, I want that 10% raise. And it could be as simple as women getting to a place where we're holding each other up and committing together that we're going to make that fearless ask. Women are not lacking for ideas, and I'm really excited about the future because in all these ways we've been talking about this morning, I actually think it comes more naturally to women to figure out how to solve the problems of the planet than it does to men. I mean, that may be a bias, but if we can get them in the streams, but the most important thing is making the fearless ask. And the reason we're all in this room, and you're sitting there, and you're sitting there, Maria, you came from California, is because they made a fearless ask of us. They called and said, will you do this? Or they emailed, or they sent us a Facebook message and said, will you do this? And I can't underscore enough how much of my time spent with young women is about make the fearless ask. And I think that's really
I understand
important.
that. I get the whole lean-in thing. I spend way too much time with Sheryl Sandberg, and I feel exhausted. So, but this idea, I mean, I joke that I thought up the idea, but my book was called Lean In and Fall Over. But that is what it feels like sometimes. Why, where is the shift going to happen? And it's very difficult, because everyone goes, oh, yes, it's a problem. But then where's the immediate solution?
Yeah, I'll go back to this crowd, okay? Because if you're hanging out on a college campus today, and Steve said we have 5 kids, 4 of them presently in college. Well, 1 just actually completed her master's, so I guess technically 3 now. What I see is gender groups together that I didn't see when I was in college or when I was younger. When I look at companies, and the Case Foundation is made up largely of millennials, I don't see the division between men and women in the way they work together that I did in our generation. And I have really hoped and that will transcend into both leadership and company makeup and everything else, just a whole new way of looking at it, which is, it's not about if you're a guy and I'm a girl. They're doing things together in different ways today that they traditionally
But do you spend more time? It has to, though, start with looking at the room, actually physically looking at the room and saying, hey, now, everybody here is a white guy, which it always is, which is just, it always is. And again, and recognizing that might be a problem in terms of diversity of thinking, in terms of diversity of thought. You at AOL actually had a lot of women executives when you were there, which was very early on. That has gone down and gone the opposite way versus the thing. Is there anyone?
I think it's an issue. There's some short-term things and then some long-term things. I think on the longer term, it goes back to some of what I was saying. There's a Wayne Gretzky quote about hockey is, the reason he was so great, he didn't focus on where the puck was, he focused on where the puck was going. And where the puck is going with this next generation of companies and the skill set and the playing field being leveled somewhat because of things like crowdfunding, gives me reason to be pretty optimistic over the next 10, 20 years it will change in a more profound way. But it'll take some time. In the short run, Mitt Romney was criticized, I think, appropriately, and in one of the debates for using the phrase, you needed a bind full of women.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's true. And I had that even recently where we were interviewing at Revolution for somebody, an terrific person that's like, well, we need to broaden the base of candidates. So you have to be proactive in making sure that you're looking at a broad set, not just because it's the right thing to do, which it is, but because it better reflects the markets you're serving, the customers you're interacting with, in this case, the entrepreneurs you're connecting with. So I think it requires some, proactive action. At the same time, I think as the social sector and particularly the startup sector begin to blur, and as some of the challenges that are going to be identified around learning and health, this third wave of companies begin to accelerate, and as crowdfunding, which does make it easier for people to raise money based on their idea, not what they look like or who they happen to know. Those things are, those mega trends, I think, are reason to believe, be more optimistic that, 25 years from now we'll be in a better place. But there are things we can do in the short run, I think we all need to do, just that are more kind of, short-term, more tactical kind of interventions while we wait for these broader forces to take hold.
Although on some level, the relationships we have with our devices now, probably we will not have children going forward, because this is honestly one of the best relationships I've ever had. But, sorry, Megan.
Megan.
I don't know, I can't.
You know
she said
true.
it.
Honesty. Look, it's just the way it is. Lastly, before we get to questions, what is the thing that's happened that's most exciting? Like, what invention have you loved the most, and which one have you been like, oh, I wish that would go away? Very quickly, and then we'll get to questions. Steve or Jean?
Okay, what I love, there's huge power in crowdfunding, and scale has arrived. So we invested in 3 different platforms, and just one of them by itself surpassed $1 billion in online giving, mostly micro donations. The power of citizens to both, have a voice in their world and be a part of the solutions in their communities is unlike it's ever been, and I'm very excited by it.
Something you want to go away? Anything you want to go away?
Don't say me.
Sure, hatred in the world. I think, we need open arms.
And online, that also,
I
some of
think,
these new
yeah.
apps like Secret and Whisper can get pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
I'd say I wouldn't pick any one technology, any one idea, or any one company, but I think we're now beginning, the reason I mentioned entrepreneurs are beginning to focus on the ideas that have a more significant and powerful and positive impact on society. How we learn, how we stay healthy, how we get well when we get sick, how we what we eat, how we get around, how we kind of use energy in a more responsible kind of way. This is big stuff, and so it's the next era, this next wave, I think is going to be very exciting and very powerful and very impactful. So I think that I'm optimistic. The flip side is, and we kind of covered it, is I think getting out of the realm of this, I wouldn't say get rich quick, built to flip is a little too strong, but just trying to focus on kind of little ideas, that are interesting products, but don't really have a broader impact in the world. I think there'll always be some of that. It's fine, but focusing more on the tougher challenges. They'll take longer, require more partnership, more perseverance, things like that. But if you're successful, you really can feel like the world's a better place, and you kind of put a little dent in the world in a positive way. I think the entrepreneurs are beginning to gear up for what I think will be a wave of that kind of innovation, that's sort of social innovation, not just kind of economically driven. And I'm very optimistic, and I do think women will lead the charge.
Great. I would say this mobile phone, most powerful device on the planet now for everybody. It's like, turns out the geeks were right about Star Trek. That we're all going to have these communicators, which are very powerful computers. Questions from the audience? Thank you, Steve, for that. Questions from the audience? We want some questions,
I'm going to
ladies.
disrupt.
Whoa.
We're actually not going to do questions because
All right,
I
not gonna do
spoke way
questions.
too long
Okay.
during my intro, so we're
Okay.
going to cut that. But good news is Kara's doing an office hour, and she's on another panel later, so you will get to ask her plenty of questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that. That was a really incredible discussion.
Great.
Seriously.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephen G.